Praise God. Thank the Lord. Forever. He can free us once and for all. The load we carry does not have to be the one we take to our grave. He can free us. Hallelujah. Well, are you glad to be in the house of the Lord this morning? Amen. Amen. It's good to be in church. We got my son dressed this morning, and he crawled back into bed. And I said, Cole, you can't get back into bed. You're going to wrinkle your coat, you know. And he said, I didn't get enough sleep last night. I said, well, to be honest, I didn't either. And probably some of you felt that way when you woke up this morning. But God bless you for being in church, and I know He will do it. It's good to see Elijah Emmons this morning. Sorry for picking you out. I just saw your face this morning, and my mind went back to, I think, when I met you in PR, probably 10 years ago. And I think I got in my head when I was in PR that your name was Jack. And I don't remember why, but I thought your name was Jack. And I thought this morning as I looked down there, I thought, isn't it wonderful what God is doing in Elijah's life? At Penview, serving Him. Praise God for that. Good to have all of you in the house of the Lord this morning. Well, has anyone ever asked you what your name means? We don't think a lot about the meanings behind names these days, do we? It's not that important. Now, it's probably good before you name your child to find out at least what the name means. I think Amy Weddle, as she's here this morning, I think maybe your parents were going to name your brother Amanda Lynn. Isn't that right? Amanda Lynn. Amanda Lynn. And finally they realized, I think maybe that it sounded a little bit like it was an instrument they decided against. Of course, he ended up being a boy anyways, so it wouldn't have worked. But you know, we don't think that much about what names mean. But in the Bible times, it meant a whole lot. It was very important. The name you carried was tied tightly to the character you bore. Your name meant something. And so because of that, the names of God meant something. I went to college with a guy that on his wall had a big poster with all the names of God that are listed in the Bible. I remember sitting in his room and reading those names off and thinking about them. Adonai, Jehovah Jireh, the God who provides, Jehovah Nissi, our banner, Jehovah Rapha, the healer. The names of God meant something. But if you go all the way back to the beginning of the Old Testament, God was not fully revealed to the people. Shreds and patches were, but so much was unknown early on. We see all the way back in Genesis, the people of God in bondage under Egyptian rule. And Moses has a scepter offered him, but he refuses it. Takes up a sword, and because of that, he has to flee to the wilderness and carry a staff. And it looks like God's plans are floundering, but it's there in the wilderness that God reveals His full name, His primary name to the people of God. He says, I am that I am in Exodus chapter 3. There at the burning bush, God reveals to Moses His name. It says something about His character. I am that I am. I am the one who sits outside of time. I am the self-existent one. The one that Francis Schaeffer, the Christian apologist, says is the God who simply is there. The God who is there. He needs no precursor. He needs no higher authority. He needs no one to report to. He is the I am that I am. For hundreds of years, that's how the people of God related to God. Understanding Him through that name. The I am. We see that all throughout the storied history of the children of Israel as they arrive in the promised land, as they cast out the Canaanites only imperfectly and eventually being corrupted by them, asking for a king, then having kings thrust upon them that are evil, leading them astray, taken into exile, eventually coming back, but then 400 years of silence. But then one day a man arrives on the scene. Something's different about this man. It's very clear. The laws of nature don't apply to him. He's healing hearts and healing bodies left and right. And it's clear something's different about this man, Jesus. And you know, in Jesus' ministry, oftentimes he was sort of cagey about who he was. You ever notice that? Has that ever struck you as sort of odd? It has me. If I was God, I'd tell everybody, let me tell you. And yet Jesus sort of plays it cagey. Oftentimes when people ask him who he is or where his power comes from, we see him giving cryptic answers and dodging the question and eluding certainty. And yet we see several times, especially in the Gospel of John, it seems, we see several times where Jesus identifies himself very clearly with the I am of Israel. Identifies himself very clearly as the I am of the Old Testament. And I want us to look at that. If you'll turn over to the book of John. Several instances where Jesus identifies himself and reveals himself as that Redeemer, as the I am of Israel. In Greek, it's ego eimi. I can't read Greek, but I've learned enough to know that's what that means. Ego eimi means I am. And so when you see that in Jesus' stories and see that in Jesus' interactions and see that specifically in the book of John, we can see that Jesus is tying his identity to that name of God, that revealed character of the I am of Israel. First in John chapter 6. John chapter 6, verse 13. We see Jesus having fed the 5,000. I mentioned that story last night. And I think in some ways we see as Jesus feeds the 5,000, why Jesus could not always be 100% clear about who he was. Because when he revealed his power, when he revealed who he was, the people came after him for some of the wrong reasons. He said, no, you are coming after me not because you saw me and believed, but because you ate of the loaves and were filled. We see after they've gathered together and after the 12 baskets of fragments are filled and after the men are amazed at the miracle Jesus has done in verse 14. And after this verse 15, Jesus perceives that they're going to come and take him by force and make him king. He goes off into the mountain by himself alone. Then in verse 16, we see the disciples going down and getting on a boat, going to the sea, entering a ship in verse 17. And they went over the sea towards Capernaum. And it was now dark, and Jesus was not come to them. And the sea arose, we're told, by reason of a great wind that blew. So when they had rowed out about 5 and 20 or 30 furlongs, they see Jesus walking by the sea, and drawing nigh unto the ship, they were afraid. But he said unto them, it is I. Literally, if you look at the words in the Greek, it's ego eimi. I am, be not afraid. I am, be not afraid, he says to them. Then they willingly received him into the ship, and immediately the ship was at the land whither they went. There's a dramatic demonstration of power. After Jesus says, I am, be not afraid, he enters into the ship and bam, that ship sped up somehow. It immediately arrives where they were going. The storm is dissipated and they've arrived at the port. I am, Jesus says, be not afraid. Jesus here, I believe, is identifying himself with that God, the I am of Israel. In their fear, they weren't certain. In this storm, they weren't certain. Their bleary eyes were deceiving them. They see a man coming, walking on the water. And Jesus calls out to them above the din of the waves and says, I am, be not afraid. Do not fear. And I believe in that moment, Jesus was identifying himself with the I am of Israel, the self-existent one, the creator, the one who created the very waves he was standing on. When the disciples were headed for shipwreck and when they needed a Savior, a God who was present, the God, the I am, was there. Jesus revealed himself as the I am, the Redeemer of the present. In the face of the howling winds and the crashing waves, Jesus declares, I am. In the face of almost certain shipwreck, Jesus declares, I am. You don't need to fear because there's a Redeemer of this present moment, the thing that's threatening you the most, the thing that threatens to destroy you. I come treading upon that thing. I am, the Redeemer of the present. And here today, likely there are some who need an I am God, who need one that is the Redeemer of their present circumstances. Some of you, no doubt, are in storms this morning beyond your control. Situations that would threaten to undo you. Let me declare to you this morning that there is a God in heaven, the I am God, the Redeemer of this present moment. Before the winds ever began in your life, He was. Before the winds ever started and the waves began rocking your little boat, He was the I am. Before tears ever dimmed your eyes, He was the I am of your moment. Before problems ever arose and your faith was ever shattered, He was the I am in your circumstance. Jesus is the I am, the Redeemer of the present. I would venture to say that not only are there some here today that are subject to storms beyond their control, I would also guess there are some of you that find yourselves in storms of your own making. Storms that you have created. Your life is headed for shipwreck. Without a divine encounter, you are headed towards ruin. You too need a God who is the Redeemer in this present moment. You too need a God who's more powerful than the sea of sin you find yourself sailing on this morning. Let me tell you, Jesus Christ comes to you, walking on the waves of your life, declaring Himself to you as the I am, the Redeemer of your present circumstances. There's someone here today who is maybe caught up in secret sin. You need God to be the Redeemer of this present moment. There's a young man who's here today who is at loggerheads with his parents and who is hard-headed and hard-hearted and rebellious. You just can't seem to make peace in your life. You're at war with your teachers. Your house is a war zone. Every conversation turns into an argument. You've got the bit in your teeth and you will see you have your own way or else. Let me tell you, there is a God who comes walking on the waves of your life, who declares to you, He is more powerful than the storm of sin you find yourself in. He can deliver you and loose you from the chains you don't even maybe know are wrapped around you. He can loose you from the rebellious heart that you find yourself possessing. And He can be the I am of your present circumstance. There's a marriage maybe here this morning that's on the rocks. You married her thinking that she would change. You married him thinking that you could reform him. You married her thinking that she wouldn't be crazy like her mama is. And yet after the puppy love has worn off and after the infatuation has dispelled, you found that there's very little foundation to your relationship, and every argument just seems to get worse with every passing day. And you feel like you're living in the house of a stranger and you don't know what to do about it, and you don't know where to turn, and you don't know who to talk to. Let me tell you, there is a God who comes walking on the waves of your life, who is more powerful than the circumstances of sin you find yourself in. He is stronger than the broken relationships you find yourself in. And He can release power in your life to rise above the storm of sin you find yourself in today. I would dare say there's probably a man under the sound of my voice who's struggling with pornography this morning. Seems like every time you pick up your phone, every time you turn on a computer, temptation is accosting you. You don't know what to do about it. Every time you go on the internet, it seems like you can't find your way to anywhere but somewhere dirty. You can't find anything that doesn't lead you back to that sin you said you'd never go back to. You don't know what to do. You don't know who to turn to. You're hopeless and helpless. You know it's poisoning your mind. You know it's ruining your thought life. You know it's leading you down a wrong path. You know it's going to take you to shipwreck. Let me tell you, if you're hopeless and helpless like that this morning, there is a God who can come walking on the back of the waves of sin in your life and who declares Himself the Redeemer of your present crisis. He can redeem you. You can't break those bonds of sin, but He can. You can't tear back the addiction that has seized your mind, but He can. You can't get out of the circumstances you find yourself in, but It can free you out of those circumstances this morning. Jesus Christ declares Himself as the I am, the present Redeemer But that's not the last time we see Jesus declaring himself as the I am, even in the book of John. If you have your Bibles open, still turn with me over to John chapter 8. Jesus is disputing with the Pharisees. Pharisees seems like that's all they did, you know. But just about every time you see them anywhere in the Gospels, they're disputing. There's still folks around like that. Let me tell you, just stay away from those folks. If all you see of a person is they're disputing about things, you just stay away from them. They're nothing but trouble. Just trust me on that, all right? Pharisees still exist in our day, disputing about all sorts of things. Seems like most of them are on Facebook too. But you just stay away from those folks. Just kidding. Jesus gets in an argument with the Pharisees. Rather, they get in an argument with him. They're arguing about where he comes from and who his father is and where his power is drawn from. Verse 8, we see him disputing with them. They say to him in verse 48. They say to him in verse 48, say not we well that thou art a Samaritan and hast a devil? That's a real nice way to lead, isn't it? Jesus answered, I have not a devil, but I honor my Father, and ye do dishonor me. I seek not my own glory. There is one that seeketh and judgeth. Verily, verily, I say unto you, if a man keep my saying, he shall never see death. Jesus said, then the Jews said unto them, verse 52, now we know that thou hast a devil. Now we know you're crazy. Abraham is dead. The prophets are dead. And thou sayest, if a man keep my saying, he shall never taste death. Art thou greater than our father Abraham, which is dead? And the prophets, whom makest thou thyself? Verse 54, Jesus answered, if I honor myself, my honor is nothing. If I'm casting favors in my own face, it means zero. It is my Father that honoreth me, of whom ye say that he is your God. Yet ye have not known him, but I know him. And if I should say I know him not, then I would be a liar like you. Jesus said, I shall be a liar like unto you. But I know him and keep his sayings. Your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and he saw it and was glad. It's almost like Jesus is needling them. You see that? Then said the Jews unto him, thou art not yet 50 years old. Hast thou seen Abraham? Jesus said unto them, verily, verily, I say unto you, before Abraham was, I am. Before Abraham was, I am. Jesus is revealing himself, identifying himself with the I am of Israel. He's saying, I am the one who exists outside of time. I am the one who was at one with the Father before the creation of the foundations of the world. Jesus is making a revolutionary claim. And they know this, it seems. They can tell. They're frustrated and angry that he would dare say this. Jesus is professing to be the one in whom all the patriarchs placed their faith. He says, your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day and saw it and was glad. Hebrews says it this way. Abraham died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off, and were persuaded of them and embraced them. Jesus is saying Abraham was saved by looking forward to me, just like we today are saved looking back to him. I declare to you today that Jesus is the Redeemer of the past as well. His power is not limited to the present. His power is not limited to this present moment. His power extends all the way back to the past. You know, it's really astounding in some ways to me that the Jews are proud of the stories we're told of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Really, there's a lot in those stories to be ashamed of. You think about all the things we're told about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. All three, there's lying. In all three, there's bigamy. In all three, there's cowardice. The Jews were proud to claim Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And yet think of how those stories played out. How much in those stories there is to be ashamed about. Really, I believe the only thing that rescues them is that they looked forward to a coming Christ in faith. They looked forward to the I am coming to save his people, and they saw it in faith and believed. And that radically changed those stories in the past. Their faith looking forward, we're told in the Hebrews, was counted to them as righteousness. God's grace is so powerful. It is not bound by the present moment. God's grace sits outside of the present moment and is powerful enough to reach back into the past and to alter even the things that have already happened and to glorify even the things that we would call shameful. My pastor is Ron Stevens. I think in the last year he's been here, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right? Ron Stevens been here for a revival, maybe in the last year and a half. Most of you probably have heard, because he's been here, his life story. In the 1980s and early 90s, he was involved in running and selling drugs over the Mexico-American-Texas border. And he was involved in drug culture and a lot of problems. He paid the price for it, went to jail, had 5 prison sentences. He told me the other day, I don't even know how many felonies I have on my record, but I think it's between 15 and 20. But you know, over the four plus years that I've worked with him, one of the amazing things, just amazing, is that just about every time I get in a conversation with him and someone else from our community, this happened just last Sunday afternoon, lady who comes by our property occasionally, she's involved in drug culture, really struggling. And she causes problems because there's some people we love that live on the grounds, and she has taken advantage of them, stole money from them. We're doing our best to protect them from her. And she came around Sunday, and so after church, I said, I got to go over there because I know what's going on. So I went over and talked to her and began to deal with her. And Brother Stevens came over after a while. And it wasn't but a few minutes that he was telling her about all the felonies he'd committed. It wasn't but just a few minutes that he was talking about all the prison sentences he'd been in. It wasn't just a few minutes that he was telling her all the drugs that he'd been caught up in. And I just had to laugh. Those aren't the kind of things that you just admit to people, you know? That's not the kind of stuff you volunteer at a job application. Oh, I've been to prison 5 times, I have 15 to 20 felonies on my record. I've done all sorts of drugs. No one does that. Why is it that that has become a point of pleasure almost for him to tell that story? He does it every Friday night in every meeting he preaches. Why? I would submit to you it's because he has met the Redeemer of the past. He has met someone that is so powerful that his grace can go back and change even the events that have already occurred, can beautify the awful blots of sin that are there on a record, and can take them and make them something that is a trophy of God's grace. Jesus is saying, I am the Redeemer of the past. Abraham looked forward and saw my day and was glad, and it was counted to him as righteousness. I am not simply the Redeemer of the present. I am also the Redeemer of the past. And I would say to you tonight, if you are here and you have a past that makes you blush, let me tell you, there is a God in heaven who can be the Redeemer of your past. There is no stain that he cannot beautify. There is no sin that he cannot renovate. There is no awful record that he cannot make something out of. Amen. He is the Redeemer of our past. But that isn't the last time that we see Jesus identifying himself with the I am of Israel. Last time is in John chapter 18, if you turn there with me. Jesus is on the way to the cross. He's on the way to Calvary. The Pharisees that he was just arguing with in chapter 8 are overwrought now with anger towards him. They've settled it. They've had a meeting. They've decided he must die. Caiaphas, the high priest, stands up and says, don't you all know anything? That one man should die so that the people might live. That one man should die for the nation. They've made the decision. This man Jesus is going to be sacrificed for the nation. This man Jesus is going to be put to death for the people, prophesying in ways that they didn't even understand. And so as we pick up in John chapter 18, they've sought him out. Jesus has gone forth with the disciples in verse 1, over the brook Cedron, where was a garden into which he entered and his disciples. And Judas also, which betrayed him, knew the place, for Jesus ofttimes resorted thither with the disciples. Judas then, having received a band of men and officers from the chief priests and Pharisees, come thither with lanterns and torches and weapons. Jesus, therefore, knowing all things that should come upon him, went forth. And he said to them, whom do you seek? Who are you looking for, boys? He knew. He didn't need to ask. He knew. They respond to him, Jesus of Nazareth. And he responds to them, really, just 2 words. Here in the English translation, he is added for clarity, but if you look at the Greek, it's just 2 words. Can you guess what they might be? I am. I am. We're told in the next verse that the power of those 2 simple words knocks them back to the ground. I think Jesus did this to illustrate he did not have to go with them. He had the power to escape. He had the power to change the course. He had the power to do something different. He was not bound by these men. And yet, there he stands, waiting on his captors to get back up. He could have run. He could have escaped. As we look at this scene, my heart cries out, oh no. My heart says with Peter rather, oh Lord, far be it from you. This is not right. If there's anybody that deserves to go to the cross, it's not you. If there's anybody that deserves this punishment, it's me. Jesus, this is not right. And yet there he stands before his accusers. There he stands before his captors, waiting for them to get back up so they can arrest him. He asks them again after they stand back up. Who was it again that you were looking for? And they say, Jesus of Nazareth. And he says, it is I. And then he says something that I believe in his wisdom, he was crafting in this one moment the entirety of what he was doing spiritually. He says, it is I. Let these go. I am the Redeemer of the future. I will be the Redeemer throughout all of eternity. And I want you to let these with me go. In that moment, my mind goes to a future date, a date that has not happened yet, when you and I will one day stand before the bar of God, the judgment of God. There will be our great accuser, the devil. He'll stand there and he will, as you take the stand, he will accuse you. He will read off every evil thought you've ever had. He will bring witnesses for every evil deed you ever did. He will maybe play video footage of every awful thing you've ever done. And yet, these accusations won't be empty. They'll be just. The devil doesn't need to exaggerate for you and I to stand guilty before a holy God. The devil doesn't need to exaggerate for your sin and my sin before a holy God to look black as black can be. And the devil will cry at the end of his case for you and for me. He'll say, I rest my case. The wages of sin are death. God, you know that's what you coded into the fabric of reality. The wages of sin are death. There is no doubt this one is guilty. There is no doubt these things are true. So I ask, who is the one who will bear the punishment? Who is the one that will take the punishment for these sins? And I just imagine Jesus Christ of Nazareth stepping down from the throne room of heaven and standing between your accuser and you and saying, I am. I am. I did it. I took the pain. I took the punishment. I took the just reward of these sins. I am. I am. And in that moment, we'll know that He's not just the Redeemer of our present, though thank God He is. He's not just the Redeemer of our past, though He can redeem everything you've ever done. Amen. But in that moment, we will know He has become the Redeemer throughout all eternity. Amen. But in order for that to happen, in order for Him to be your Redeemer throughout all eternity, you must accept Him now as the Redeemer of your present and your past. I want us to stand together. If the pianist would slip to the piano. I have no doubt in a gathering of this type that there are those, much like that I described, those who are on the stormy sea of sin even now, even this weekend, even last night. And you know you're living in a way that does not please the one who died for you. You know there are things that are wrong before a holy God in your life. Let me tell you, there is a Redeemer. There is one who can cast those things into the sea of His forgetfulness. But you've got to come to Him. They must be placed under His precious blood. So I invite you this morning. I invite you to come to the one who would not only redeem your present, not only redeem your past, but would be your Redeemer for all of eternity. As we bow our heads and close our eyes, I would just wonder if there'd be anyone who would say, I need that kind of Redeemer. I need the I am of Israel. I need the one who can cover every sin and cleanse every stain. As we bow our heads tonight, I would invite you. Jesus is waiting. You don't have to get to the great throne judgment of God with condemnation. You don't have to go wondering what the outcome of that court proceeding will be. You can go with certainty. You can go with 100% confidence that Jesus has taken the punishment for you. So as we wait for a moment this morning in His presence, I just ask you to be entirely honest with your Creator. Is your heart right with God? Do you know that you know that you know that every sin is under the blood? I would invite you this morning, you can know before you walk out those doors. You can be 100% certain that Jesus has redeemed you and washed you clean. I would invite you to come this morning. Are you coming? Bondage does not have to be your reality. Sin does not have to be your reality. You can be clean. You can be clean before God. You can be free like they described in the song. And you can know that reality today. One has come. I wonder, will you come? Will you come and receive this gift? Oh God, we thank you this morning. We thank you that you are the Redeemer. Throughout all eternity, you will be the present moment, the past, all of it. You will cover it all with your blood. One drop that was spilled is enough for every person under the sound of my voice. I thank you that you are the Redeemer. We glorify your name this morning. I pray that you would be with the one who has come. I would invite those who know the power of prayer to come down and pray this morning with the one who has come. Thank the Lord that His power is sufficient. His grace is enough. His blood is more than capable for every sin here this morning. Praise God.